All right, everybody, welcome back. So this is part 3 now of the natural ages of the planets. We've already discussed, and I really recommend if you haven't watched it, check out part 1 and check out part 2. Because what we're going to do is this is going to be a continuation of what we were talking about in part 2. So without further ado, let's get right to this chart. Okay, so first and foremost, what we're going to look for is we're going to be analyzing the Venus age. The age of Venus for this person. The age of Venus. So the first thing we want to do, so what we want to do here is we want to analyze Venus all by itself. Before we look at anything else on the chart, let's look at Venus. So what do we do to look at Venus? We check out his Shadbala. We look at Venus's Shadbala. We see that there's 467 points. And then we also see that it's 1.41, which means 141% of its minimum required Shadbala. That's a good, strong Venus. We like that. So, with that being said, now we see that Venus is strong. And now what we want to look at, let's also look at Venus's dignity. Well, Venus here is in a neutral dignity. Okay, so how does this period look now? Okay, so we know that it's strong, it's a powerful, adequately strong Venus. But now we look at it and we see it's neutral dignity, so it's a little bit so-so. There's going to be some good, there's going to be some bad, basically. And then we look to see what planets Jupiter are... I gave it away, right? What planet Venus is with? Venus is with Jupiter. Jupiter is a gentle planet, so we're just looking to see gentle and cruel planets. So that's good. And the way that we're going to look at it here, because now we're going to look at what's Rashi aspecting Venus in this chart. Well, we see Mars is Rashi aspecting Venus from Aries, and then we see from Cancer we have Saturn Rashi aspecting. Two cruel planets now. And then here's the difference between conjunction and aspect. Conjunction is something that's right there with that planet, so it's like it's going to happen all the time. Whereas a Rashi aspect, these planets here, Mars and Saturn, Rashi aspecting here to Venus, these are going to show certain times that there's going to be some Mars-related energy coming here, and there's going to be certain times there's some Saturn-related energy. And both those planets can be troubles of some sort. Mars troubles are typically fast, short, intense troubles that kind of come out of nowhere. Saturn's troubles are kind of ones that you're probably always dealing with that rear their heads, and you have to, you have to deal with it at that time. It's kind of the way it works. So with that being said now, so we see that there's just going to be periods of Saturn and Mars, but other than that, it's a good period. I mean, the other thing about Venus, how's Venus placement? Venus's placement is in the first house, which is both an angle and a trine. So that's basically all we need to look at to get an idea just of how Venus as a whole is doing for this dasha. And it's also how Venus is doing in this chart. So with that being said, let's go ahead and now let's break it down into the 12 periods. So we saw that. We saw how it's doing. We saw that this is a perfectly adequate Venus by the fact that it's placed. It's with a gentle planet Jupiter. We see that it's got a decent Shadbala. So now let's set it in motion. Okay, how's this Venus? How's its energy going to pan out? Well, we're going to look and see, because we're going to break it down into 12 time periods like I talked about in part 2 of the Natural Ages videos. So in part 2, I talked about that. So now we're going to actually look at a chart with this. So we're going to see right here, first off, where is Venus? Venus is in Aquarius. Aquarius is a masculine sign. So from masculine signs, or you can either call it masculine, or you can look at the fact that it's the natural 11th Rashi, which in the natural order, the 11th Rashi is also an odd number. So it's an odd number sign, or it's a masculine sign. We always count for the next sub-period. So there's going to be 12 sub-periods because there's 12 boxes here. There's 12 signs of the zodiac, each one being the next sub-period. So the first sub-period we've determined by where Venus is located at. And then the second sub-period, or the second Antardasha, then is going to be in clockwise order. It's going to be right here in Pisces. So we're going to see that it's Pisces is the next is the next sub period, and we would see that here where it'd be Venus 1. That was when we look at the Rashi of Aquarius at 12 years old. You'll see right here at 12 years of age. And then we'll go here, Venus 2. What does Venus 2 mean? Venus 2 means the second sub period, the second dasha of Venus, which is Pisces. So then we're going to analyze Pisces. And then for Venus 3, what we're going to do is we're going to go look at Aries and how everything is affecting Aries. So, and then of course, then 4, we're going to look at Taurus. Venus 5, we're going to look at Gemini, and so on and so forth, all the way around until we get to Venus 12. The last sub period of the Venus natural age is going to be that of Capricorn. So it'll be Venus 12. We'll analyze the sign of Capricorn and see how it is doing. Now, so we've seen that, and since we already analyzed Venus, we have an idea of what Venus 1 is going to be, just like what we said Venus would be. It was going to be, it's all right. It's actually, it looks like a decent shape, a couple little trials and tribulations possibly here and there, but other than that, looks good. So then, what kind of things could they expect to see during this Venus Dasha? Well, of course, Jupiter's there, so there's going to be some Jupiterian things. And we always have to keep, when it comes to these planetary ages, one of the things you have to keep in perspective, because we're looking at a woman's chart, you might be inclined to say, oh, look, it's Venus and Jupiter together. And we're going to look at Venus Dasha, Venus's relationships. Jupiter is the husband. Well, we're talking about a 12-year-old. You think that a 12-year-old is going to have a husband? Is it possible? Yeah. I mean, sure, some cultures, some places this happens. But for your average person in America, not the case. So we would want to think that we'd want to look at Jupiter just more as joy. Look at this as more of a joyous period where they're happy with everything that they're finding in the world. And and there's going to be some conflicts and stuff. And so what's really important too when you're looking at these is to look at the dignity of the planets. So again, let's just look here. And we'll see that Jupiter is in an enemy dignity. Now, sometimes that joy might get them in a little bit of trouble. It might not be the worst, but Jupiter's a gentle planet. So in an enemy dignity, it's just like, it just shows that, the joy and the purpose and the goals that they're setting just might not be of like the highest order that's going to give the best results necessarily. That doesn't mean that it's going to be a cruel Jupiter. So, and what we can also look at is we can look at to see what's going to happen in this. It just so happens I chose this chart, and it just so as an example, and I just randomly selected this chart earlier, and I just randomly selected Venus, and Venus happens to be in the first house. So what does that mean? This person's going to be all about, they're going to be happy and content with their body, with just what the way their life is going, like the path of their life. They're just kind of merrily going along and everything. And we can also look at, and we can see that what these planets, so we see the first house. We know that it's going to be that because this is the first house. That's where Venus is placed. And then we also could look at what Jupiter rules here. So what does Jupiter rule? Jupiter rules the 11th. Oh, the 11th. Here we go. This is peers, groups of peers. And what are groups of peers to a 12-year-old? This is their schoolmates, their classmates and everything. And guess what? It also rules, Jupiter also rules Mercury. Mercury is another indication of friends. So here it was, you could see this is a person that's probably having a good time and really enjoying having their friends around. So that's just kind of a way to start looking at that. So that was a good period. And then we would look at the next, now we're going to go up to Pisces. Boom, the next Venus 2 period. I highlighted it down here. So now we're going to look at Venus 2 period, but look, there's no little number in it. And these numbers are the house cusps. So the cusps is, we will get into that in another video. But just trust me on that. That is the most important thing, is the number here. These numbers tell about, so if you know what the second house is, you're going to look for the second house cusp. And whatever Rashi that the second house cusp is, that's when we're going to get this second house cusp, the second house concrete things getting activated. And so you'll see here, Pisces doesn't have a house cusp. Oh no, so is this an empty period? There's no planets, there's no house cusp? No, what we can do here is we can just count from Karakas. So one thing we can count from, we can count from all these other planets, second from Jupiter, second from Venus, 12th from Mars. But what I'm going to look at here, because I think this is pertinent, is the 10th from Moon. And what's the 10th from Moon? Well, the 10th from Moon has to do with like how we're viewed in the world. It's basically putting the moon in the sky. So like how we're viewed for like our personality and who we are. for our individual self and nature. And now what we can do is we can say, okay, so we have that here. So it's the 10th from the moon. So this is one of the things that here. And then we look at the age. What age is this? This is between 13 years and 8 months and 15 years and 4 months. Do you think that's a pertinent discussion there? Do you think that a person that's, between 13 and 15 years of age cares about getting idea of who they are and their personality and getting out into the world? Absolutely. So what do we see here? What are the aspects? Because there's no planets in here. Well, what we can look at right away is we can look at the Lord. The Lord of Pisces is Jupiter. Where's Jupiter? We already talked about that. Jupiter's enemy dignity. It's not doing that great, but Jupiter's placed in the first house, which is a good place, and it's with nice Venus. Okay, so that's kind of looking like an okay thing. And then let's see how the cruel and the gentle aspects are going here. Well, we have a waxing moon, which is a gentle planet aspecting. We have Ketu. We don't really count the aspect of Ketu because Ketu is an introverting force. So Ketu and Rahu are just one and the same. They're just one demon. It's like one demon with Rahu is the head without a body. Ketu is the body without a head. So Ketu is an introverting force. So with Rashi aspects, I don't really pay too much attention to Ketu because Ketu will kind of introvert you. Whereas Rahu's extroverting. Rahu's the planet when Rahu, the head without a body is aspecting. Rahu's going to kind of get in there and make you explore things. He's going to make you a little bit confused. He represents illusion because Rahu doesn't necessarily know exactly where he's going. So yeah, absolutely. Can you say that this was a time period? Well, hold on, let's keep looking. Okay, so then we have the Sun Rashi aspecting. Oh, goodness gracious. How is the Sun Rashi aspecting? Well, that's a cruel planet. But then we have Mercury. And as far as Rashi aspects go, I always consider Mercury to be a friendly planet or a gentle planet. So we have two gentle planets, basically. We have two cruel planets. And like I said, we have Jupiter and an enemy dignity, but with Venus. So it's like it's about 50-50. There's going to be some times where they feel a little bit unsure about themselves and kind of like who they are, which is kind of typical for a teenager. Because as a teenager, what are we doing in these formative years here? We're trying to find our identity and establish ourselves. So this was probably a really important time for her to establish her identity. So then, finally, we get over here. We go into Venus 3 period. What is Venus 3 period? Venus 3 period is the sign of Aries. Okay, so here's the first period, second period, third period. Third period here, and we'll look down here at the age, 15 years of age to 17 years of age. We have Mars, and Mars is in Aries. Mars rules Aries. Oh, wow, that's a really cool thing to see. So that's the second house there. So we see now we have that second cusp here. So this is a good time. This is a wonderful time because Mars now is in good dignity. He's in plus dignity. Even though he's a cruel planet, he's in his own house. That's a good thing. You want a planet in their own house. That is a wonderful thing. And so what this is going to show, and then you see how now we have the second house cusp. So there's going to be a theme more of second house things. What is second house themes? Second house things is whatever we have around us, like the resources that we need. But it's also, it's like friends and family also. So we can see that, here's another indicator where, and then Mars is about activity and getting involved in the world. So maybe this is a time where this person, maybe she started playing some sports, or maybe she got more involved, with her friends. And Mars also represents siblings and co-workers and associates and things of that nature. So Mars has to do with an ability or with the idea of friends and other people that you work with and things like that. So maybe this is a time where they were playing more. And then how are the Rashi aspects? Well, we have two gentle planets in Jupiter and Venus aspecting it. So you can see that this is a really good thing. And then we can also look at what else does Mars rule. So we know Mars rules the second. Mars also rules the 10th and the 9th. So remember how we were just looking at the moon, the 10th from the moon? Oh, well now look, we're talking about the actual 10th cusp. We're talking about the actual 10th house. So here's the 10th house lord in its own house. So that's a good thing. So this is now, it's like she's really stepping into who she is. Maybe she's a little unsure there. So this is how we can start to read this, because you're always going to want to take into consideration the ages. And this is why I wanted to use the Venus age, because if we were to talk about the Jupiter age, we'd be talking about somebody that's between 32 and 50. And so what I want to always remember, which you always need to remember when you're talking about the planetary ages, is that you have to remember the age of the person that you're looking at. And this is how we look at each sign. So now we can go to the 4th sign, 5th sign, 6th sign, 7th sign, 8th sign, 9th sign, 10, 11, 12, all the way around the merry-go-round here of the Rashi, and we could see how each one's going to do. And that's kind of fun to do. Kind of fun to go around there and kind of say, oh, by guessing by what houses, what house cusps are here, what the house lords are there, what the planets are there, the cruel, the gentle natures of the planets, their dignities. And that's going to kind of, you play this, it's like a little game. It's really fun. You can go around there and try and guess how this person's life played out during these specific times. So that's one way to do it, is to just sit there and go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. But I think for a pertinent discussion, so like let's say you were talking to this person, and let's say this person were right here. Let's say they're age 20 to 20 years and 4 months to 22, and they were asking you like, oh gosh, I'm having, gosh, I don't know what I want to do with my life or whatever, I mean, I'm kind of confused. And you'd be like, well, let's see here. Let's look what planetary age you're running. So we go down here to Venus 6, and we go over here. We count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And you see, oh, look, guess what? Here you have the sign of Cancer. And what do you have? You have Saturn here. And what is Saturn's dignity? Saturn's dignity is neutral. Well, here's the thing, is you could just know right away by looking at that. You're like, yeah, I could see that this is a tough time. I mean, this is a time where you're really just like, you're finding a lot of obstacles and delays in what you're trying to do. And why are they finding obstacles and delays? Because they've got, this is the 6th house we're talking about. What are we talking about? Well, we're talking about the first lord going into the 6th house. And this first lord is a cruel planet, Saturn. So that's how you can use these. And another way you can use it is if you're not even talking to the person and you're just looking at their Venus Dasha, you can sit here and zone in and be like, okay, where are the gentle planets? Where are the cruel planets? And so just looking at this chart, I would go, oh, look, here's Mars, but Mars in his own house. So that's actually really good. That's not going to be a difficult time. I would actually look to Saturn and Rahu is what I would look to. And I would say those are going to be the more difficult times. And then I would look to where Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury are placed in the chart and be like, okay, these are going to be the places that are going to be some of the better times. And any planet that's in its own house, Multricone, and exalted, so like the plus dignities. So you can just know right away, just looking at that. So you can look at this chart and you could be like, here's Saturn in the 6th. First lord in the 6th. Okay, here's going to be a tough period. What's the age? Oh, the age is between 20 and 22. Oh, here we have Rahu and Sun, 2 cruel planets. Mercury, 1 benefic, 1 gentle planet. So we have that and be like, okay, so here's kind of a troubling time. What is this? This is Venus. This is the 11th Rashi from that. So what age is that? Oh, 28. You could just be like, okay, I know this person might have some troubles between 28 and 30. But before you talk about any of these troubles or struggles, it's always important to look at the other dasha systems. So at the same time, so here we go, and we're like, well, what dasha are they running during this? So let's go back to this. Let's go to what would look like to be the most troubling thing is, okay, so between 20 and 22, what do we know? That is between 1994 and 95, so you find it in Vinchotri Dasha and see what are they running. Oh, look, they were in Rahu Dasha. They were in Rahu Venus Dasha. So you're like, oh yeah, you were in a time of confusion, of Rahu, and Rahu Venus Dashas are notorious for changes that you just don't expect or see coming. So you can see that now we're seeing a little bit of confluence here. Like, oh, you're in Rahu Dasha and you're going through a troubling time here too. And all things that Rahu shows, which I'm not going to get into, show that like, yeah, I could see where there's going to be some struggles during this time. So anyway, so that's how we can look at this. And so, all right, with that being said now, what else there is what I was talking about earlier. So let's go all the way back up to here to Venus 1. All right, so if you look up here, you'll see that if you see these numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5 here on planetary ages, what you'll see here is when you click on 1, that shows you just the planetary ages. And I've already told you this, 0, 1, 3, 12, 32, 50, 70. of Moon, Mars, Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, Sun, Saturn. All right, we know that. We've talked about that in the first 2 videos. And so then when we hit number 2, what that is showing us our subperiods, which we just went through. So let's go over here. Let's find Venus period, Venus 1. And what I wanted to show you is we can go all the way down to a 3rd level. Remember how I told you there's going to be certain periods in time where there's going to be some struggles here? Well, where are we going to find these struggles? Well, we're going to find these struggles. Let me go all the way back here to Venus 1. Where we're going to find these struggles would be Venus 1, 3, because that's where Mars is. Remember how I said there's only going to be a certain time where this Mars energy is going to come into play? Well, it would come into play between March 20th, 1986 and May 10th, 1986. Between those 2 time periods right there. And then we said that the Saturn period might represent another time that might be kind of tough. Oh, look at that. So when would that be? That would be during Venus 1, which is this Rashi here, and the 6th from this one Venus. So then that would be 8/19/86 to 10/9/86. So hopefully that doesn't get too far over your head, basically. So those are gonna, because those planets are Rashi aspecting them, so that's showing when those time periods are gonna come to play. So we're looking at the base level of what the planet is, which is Venus Dasha from 12 to 32. And then we broke that down into 12 different sub-periods, sub-dashas, and that's what this Venus 1 is. So I'll show you that here. That's Venus 1, Venus 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And then each one of these Venus 1 dasha, or Venus 2 or Venus 3, each one of these numbers, these sub-periods can be broken down into a 3rd sub-period. And that will tell us when those Rashi aspects are going to happen. So, and then also, so now if we go into Venus 2 period here, which is basically, that is Pisces here. This Pisces, remember we were talking about Moon in the 10th? Well, when do you think Moon in the 10th is going to be most activated? Well, it's going to be most activated in a good way when that Moon is aspecting it, right? So let's go into the 3rd one and we'll see when that is. And what is that going to be? That's the 4th Rashi. So if this is where we're counting from. Venus 2 is right here. So then 1, 2, 3, 4. So you will see, scroll all the way back up yonder. And we go to Venus 2, see Venus 2, 1. That's right here. And then Venus 2, 2 is Mars. Venus 2, 3 is here in Taurus. Venus 2, 4. This would be a good time for it because we would have that Moon aspecting it, and it's the 10th from Moon. So I would expect that there would be some kind of thing between January 9th, 1988 and February 29th, 1988, where there would be something about that person trying to really discover who they are and finding their place in the world. So anyways, this wraps up for this video, and that's basically how you do it. So you start out, you look at the planet as a whole. So basically we're going here. Let's just zoom out here, where we're looking at the planetary ages here. You look at Moon and see what its Shadbala is, and you see where it's situated, cruel planets, gentle planets, house placed from the ascendant, you know, so, and then you go through it and you look at its 12 periods. And then you go through with Mars and Mercury, Venus, Jupiter, and then the next thing what you can do is you can look at all the different Varga charts. So, and I kind of talked about this. So during the Venus Dasha, you know, Venus is about establishing yourself. And so we'd want to look and working with other people, you know, creating relationships. So we'd want to look in the Saptamsha chart. The Saptamsha chart is about relationships. And so we would see Venus is in Aquarius here. We see that it's with the 6th cusp. It's in the 11th from the ascendant, the 11th Rashi, which tells us that, you know, that's a decent house. It's an Upachai house. Things will get better there. It's a good place for planet to be. And then so we can see that 6th house issues are going to come into play here in the relationships. And then we can see that it's aspected by Mars, who's not in his own house here. So it's going to indicate possibly a little bit more conflicts. And then we see that Sun is aspecting, but the Sun is exalted. So do you think the Sun is going to give you more struggles? I mean, it's still a cruel planet, But no, I mean, it's an exalted planet. An exalted planet that's aspecting is going to be a better thing. So we always want to look at these dignities. And then we see that Jupiter, a gentle planet, is aspecting also. So we can look at that and we can say Jupiter here is in a great friend sign. Oh, that's awesome. That's a good thing. Sun is exalted and Mars is in a friend sign. So these are all decent dignities. You know, so we can see, so that'll give you an idea of the Venus Dasha overall as a whole. And then you just start going through here and then you start counting the same sub periods that we looked at earlier. Venus 1, Venus 2, Venus 3, Venus 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. And then you can just right away, let's see, what are going to be the most troubling periods? Well, we have exalted Sun here with Jupiter and great friend dignity. That's good. This is going to be a good period. This is going to be a decent period because, well, Venus is a neutral dignity. And then we look at Rahu here. And, oh, Rahu, this might be a troubling period, which will be Venus 5. And we'd want to look back at the other charts and see what else. So you can look at all the different Vargas and find where you're seeing the most confluence of difficulties. And then you can also see, oh, here's Saturn. Oh, but Saturn's in his own house. So do you think Saturn's going to be a troublesome planet in the Saptamsha? I don't think it is, actually. I think it's actually going to be a decent planet. So you always, and that kind of brings up the point, like you want to have your cruel planets in these in good dignity. So where would I think the most troubling planet would be? The most troubling time? I would think it would be this Rahu, this period right here, the Venus 5, as far as Saptamsha goes. And that's how you can look at it. What's going to be the best time? Well, it might be right here with an exalted Sun and with Jupiter. And it's the path. It's the first Rashi in the ascendant. It's the first house. So definitely. And that's during Venus 3. So maybe that's the first time that this person actually got a boyfriend. Who knows? I don't have the details of this chart to tell you about that. I actually haven't even, to tell you the truth, I haven't even done this reading yet. This is actually this is actually a chart I've been studying. So this is actually me studying also. So anyhow, so that's how you can do it. And there's a bunch of other, oops, we want to right click on this center number here. So yeah, there's 16 different Vargas to look at, even more than that because there's actually more than 16 right here. But for the most part, you can choose any of these Vargas that are pertinent. I mean, if you're talking about a 12-year-old, is it that important to look at the Navamsha chart, the chart of marriage? Yeah, there is some part because Venus is an important planet there, but you're going to want to look at that in the later periods, right? You're not going to want to look at that in, you know, when they're still 12 years old. So just keep that in mind. That's how to use it. Be practical with it. Use your Rashi aspects, cruel, gentle nature, look at dignities. And this is just a wonderful way to see how the natural ages work and how they're going to play out in the person's life instead of just what they mean in a general sense. So hopefully this video was very useful and I hope that you found it very helpful. And thank you for watching and namaste.